Hi, everyone, welcome back to the British Accent Podcast. I'm Emily.
And I'm Nick. Thanks for tuning in. Today's episode might hit close to home for a lot of you, because we're asking something simple, but actually really important. Does grammar make you feel trapped?
Yeah. That pressure to get it right all the time. To speak in perfect tense, perfect word order, perfect structure, or else, it feels like your message doesn't count.
Exactly. And what's strange is, grammar is meant to help us express ourselves. But sometimes it becomes the very thing that blocks us from doing just that.
I've seen it so many times. People with interesting thoughts, brilliant stories, important things to say, but they hold back. Because they're afraid they'll mess up a preposition, or forget the past perfect.
It's heartbreaking, really. Because language is meant to be lived, spoken, shared. But when grammar becomes a cage, it stops feeling like communication, and starts feeling like performance.
Totally. And I get it, grammar does matter. It gives structure, it creates clarity. But it's not the soul of the sentence. It's not what makes a sentence connect.
Yes. And when someone's speaking from the heart, even if the grammar's not perfect, you feel it. You understand. Because communication isn't about ticking boxes. It's about meaning.
But the way we're taught grammar, that's the problem, isn't it? Often it's rules first, feelings second. We're told, don't speak until you've mastered the system. Which, who really does?
Right. And that kind of approach teaches fear. You end up second-guessing every sentence. Is this correct? Did I conjugate that verb properly? Instead of just saying what you mean.
It turns the act of speaking into this stressful, technical thing. Like you're defusing a bomb with every word. One wrong move and boom, you feel embarrassed or judged.
But here's the thing, most native speakers bend grammar all the time. We say, I was like, we mix tenses, we leave sentences unfinished. And nobody stops the conversation.
Exactly. Real-life speech is messy. It's flexible. And if you're learning English, you have a right to that flexibility too. You don't have to wait until your grammar's perfect to be heard.
You don't have to wait until your grammar's perfect to be heard. And I think once you realize that, something shifts. You stop seeing grammar as this strict wall, and start seeing it as just a tool. Useful, but not the point.
Yeah. I think grammar is like scaffolding. It helps build your structure, but it's not the house itself. And if you focus too much on the scaffolding, you never move in and start living.
That's a brilliant way to put it. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just speak, even if the scaffolding is wobbly. Because speaking builds fluency. Making mistakes teaches grammar in a more human way.
And not only that, when you use grammar in real conversation, you feel how it works. You start to notice patterns naturally. You don't need to memorize endless charts.
That's exactly how kids learn language. They don't study rules. They play. They copy. They listen. And slowly, it starts to stick.
But adults, we've been trained to be afraid of getting it wrong. Like mistakes are dangerous. When actually, they're how your brain figures things out.
Totally. And sometimes I wonder if the fear of bad grammar actually holds back more progress than the mistakes themselves. Because when you're afraid, you freeze. You go silent.
Yeah. You focus so much on not making a mistake, that you forget what you wanted to say. Your message gets lost under layers of self-doubt.
And that's such a shame. Because the world needs your message. Not your perfect grammar, your voice.
Absolutely. And the irony is, the more you speak freely, mistakes and all, the more your grammar improves over time. Because you're using the language, not just studying it from a distance.
It's like learning to dance. You can't just read about the steps forever. At some point, you have to stand up, stumble a bit, find your rhythm. That's where the real growth happens.
And maybe it's not about ignoring grammar completely, but releasing the pressure. Letting it support your speech, not control it.
Exactly. It's a shift in relationship. You go from thinking of grammar as this strict teacher hovering over your shoulder, to seeing it as a quiet guide. There when you need it, but not shouting all the time.
That's so true. And sometimes, when learners stop obsessing over the rules, their natural voice starts to come through. You can hear the difference, it's more relaxed, more personal.
It's like their real personality finally has space to show up. Because grammar obsession can be like wearing tight clothes, everything gets stiff, unnatural.
Yeah, like you're trying too hard to fit in, instead of just being comfortable in your own skin. Or in this case, your own voice.
And when you're comfortable, your message flows more easily. Even if there are a few hiccups, the heart of what you're saying comes through loud and clear.
And honestly, most people won't even notice if your grammar isn't perfect. They'll remember how you made them feel. If you were warm, honest, funny, thoughtful, that's what sticks.
That's so important to highlight. Because so many learners think they're being judged for every small error, but most listeners aren't doing that at all. They are just listening for connection.
Right? And connection doesn't need flawless grammar. It needs intention. It needs presence. It needs you, speaking as you, not as a textbook version of yourself.
So maybe the next time grammar starts to feel like a trap, like you're not allowed to speak until you get it all right, you could pause and ask, what do I actually want to say?
And then, just say it. However it comes out. Because that's where real learning begins. In the mess, in the effort, in the honest trying.
Because grammar will always be there. You'll pick it up, bit by bit. But don't wait until it's perfect. You've got things to say now.
You've got things to say now. And honestly, the more you say them, even imperfectly, the more powerful your voice becomes, not just in English, but in your own confidence too.
Yes. There's something really freeing about giving yourself permission to be unfinished. To be learning in real time. It makes the whole process more human, and more enjoyable.
And let's be honest, we've all heard people speak with perfect grammar, but zero connection. It sounds polished, but flat. There's no real soul behind it.
Yeah. Sometimes the most moving speakers are the ones who aren't technically perfect, but they mean every word. You lean in because you feel their heart, not because they ticked every grammar box.
So maybe the goal isn't to sound flawless, maybe it's to sound like yourself. Just, in English. With your natural pauses, your personality, your rhythm.
And that takes practice, not perfection. It takes speaking up even when you feel shaky. It takes forgiving yourself when you mix up tenses. And it takes trusting that the message still matters.
Because it does. You're not in a grammar exam, you're in a conversation. You're connecting. And that's a completely different kind of success.
And sometimes the breakthrough moment isn't when you finally use the past perfect correctly. It's when you say something that matters, and someone really hears you.
That's when English stops feeling like a subject and starts feeling like a tool. A bridge. A voice. And you realize, you never needed to be perfect to cross that bridge.
You just needed to take the first step, grammar gaps and all.
And once you do, you start to realize the gaps don't matter as much as you thought. People still understand you. They still respond. They still care.
And slowly, that voice inside that used to say, "You're not good enough yet," gets quieter. It gets replaced by something softer. Something like, "I'm getting there." And that's enough.
I'm getting there. And that's enough. That's such a powerful mindset shift. Because suddenly, you're not chasing perfection anymore, you're building trust. In yourself. In your process.
Yeah. You stop measuring every sentence by how correct it is, and start noticing how true it feels. How real it sounds when it comes out of your mouth.
And that's when English starts feeling more like a part of you, not this thing outside of you that you're constantly trying to catch up with.
You know, some of the most fluent speakers I've met didn't have the best grammar, but they had presence. They had ease. They weren't afraid to just be themselves in the language.
And that's what makes you want to talk with them. Because it's not intimidating. It's not about who's more advanced. It's about being real, being human, together.
And I think the more we talk about this openly, the more we create space for learners to feel free, to make mistakes, to ask questions, to speak anyway.
Exactly. Because the fear of grammar mistakes often comes from this pressure to prove ourselves. But once you let go of that, you can focus on something way more meaningful, connection.
And connection doesn't ask for perfect tense usage. It asks for eye contact. Curiosity. The courage to keep the conversation going, even when you're not sure how to say it right.
And honestly, when you do that, when you push through the hesitation and still choose to speak, you're showing a kind of fluency that grammar books can't teach.
Fluency of intention. Fluency of heart. That's something no test can measure, but everyone can feel.
So if grammar's been making you feel small or nervous or stuck lately, maybe it's not because you're doing it wrong. Maybe it's because you're holding yourself to an unrealistic idea of what good English is.
And maybe good English isn't about being flawless. Maybe it's just about being brave enough to speak with the grammar you have today, not the grammar you wish you had.
Maybe it's just about being brave enough to speak with the grammar you have today, not the grammar you wish you had.
Because honestly, most of the growth happens in motion. Not when you're stuck waiting to be ready, but when you're out there using the language, wobbling a bit, sure, but moving forward.
And that wobble is so human. It means you're taking steps. It means you're not frozen in fear anymore. You're doing the messy, magical work of actually learning.
Yeah. And it's funny, I've heard people say things like, I know all the grammar, but I still can't speak. That says something, doesn't it?
It really does. Because grammar is just one piece. If you've got all the grammar, but no practice speaking, then your English lives only in your head, not in your voice.
Exactly. And language is meant to be spoken, shared, felt. It's not meant to stay in notebooks and worksheets forever.
So maybe the invitation here is to flip the approach. Instead of asking, is my grammar good enough to speak, you ask, can I speak enough to let grammar catch up later?
Yes. Let grammar follow your expression, not block it. Let it grow alongside your ideas, your mistakes, your conversations.
And the more you speak, the more you feel grammar. Not as a rulebook in your head, but as a rhythm in your speech. It becomes natural, lived in.
And the irony is, when you stop obsessing over it, grammar actually gets easier. It sneaks into your habits without you even realizing it.
Kind of like muscle memory. It's not about conscious effort anymore, it becomes instinct. But you only get there if you give yourself permission to speak before it's perfect.
And to speak even when it's messy. To allow yourself those half-formed sentences, the awkward word choices. Because every time you try, you're carving a deeper groove into fluency.
Your progress doesn't depend on perfection, but on courage. That quiet, daily kind of courage, the kind that says, I might mess this up, but I'll try anyway.
That kind of courage is where real language learning lives. Not in the pages of a grammar book, but in the everyday act of choosing to speak when it would be easier to stay silent.
And I think a lot of learners underestimate how brave they already are. Just choosing to speak in a second language, even with mistakes, is something many people would never dare to do.
It's incredibly vulnerable. You're opening your mouth knowing you might be judged, misunderstood, or corrected. And yet you do it anyway. That's not weakness, that's strength.
And the funny thing is, the people who judge, They usually aren't the ones learning a second language themselves. People who've been through it tend to be more understanding.
Absolutely. We know how hard it is. How much energy it takes just to form a sentence when your brain's juggling vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, all at once.
And that's why it's so important to be kind to yourself. Not just when you're doing well, but especially when you're stumbling.
Because stumbling is part of the path. You don't get fluent by avoiding errors, you get fluent by walking through them.
And grammar. It's not the enemy. It's not something to fear. It's just a tool. You can pick it up, learn to use it better, but you're allowed to speak even while you're still learning.
In fact, that's the only way grammar truly sticks. When it's connected to something real, a moment, a mistake, a conversation that mattered.
And it doesn't have to be academic. You can learn grammar while telling a story about your weekend. Or explaining why you love your favorite song. Or just chatting with a friend.
Yes, grammar becomes less of a trap and more of a companion. Something that walks beside you, not something that stands in front of you blocking the way.
And when you start to see it like that, something shifts. You don't have to choose between speaking freely and using grammar. You realize they can grow together, side by side.
So, if grammar has been making you feel stuck, we hope today reminded you that it doesn't have to hold you back. It can grow with you, not against you.
You don't need to wait until everything sounds perfect. You just need to begin. Say what you mean. Say it how you can. Grammar will come, but your voice is already here.
Thanks for spending this time with us. Wherever you are in your English journey, remember, you're allowed to speak now. Not later. Not when it's perfect. Now.
This was the British Accent Podcast. We'll be back soon with another honest conversation to keep you company while you grow.
Until then, take care and keep using your voice. Mistakes and all.